With one building created, you now work on a different building that offers a bit more challenge. Continue working on your file or use the file name cityblocks buildings bm multiple footprint.max. It shows the brick building you created recently, and now you work on a building that has multiple footprints. These two shapes on the adjacent lot show that you have a rectangular footprint for street level and an L-shaped footprint for the tower. Arguably, you can even have more shapes, such as for the mechanical room on the roof. Create a rectangle or two and a circle using normal operations. Just make sure you use AutoGrid to ensure the shapes are at the same level as the rest. Actually, that shouldn't affect your workflow at all, as the upper floor elevations are dependent on the building structure and hierarchy. It just makes things tidier. Disable AutoGrid when done. Run Building Maker and create a street level volume using the Create Building button. Apply a color map for it. In this case, I'm using the file slv com3 w4h6diff.jpg. Apply the corresponding reflection map. Adjust the real-world dimensions. If you forgot to take note of them, the file names give you that information, in this case 40 meters by 6 meters. Also adjust any image offsets as you see fit, especially in the Z direction. Remove the caps as you won't need them. You're about to create a flat top for the street level roof. Add a new level using the same spline. You'll use this level to add a parapet around the perimeter. Use the image bwconcrete3 diffuse.jpg as a color map. It represents a concrete texture that works well in this case. Adjust the real-world dimensions to about 9 meters by 3 meters. You can afford to distort images of concrete, dirt, grass, and gravel, as they are more forgiving than images of doors and windows. It would be nice if the parapet protrudes a little, so adjust the start width value accordingly. About 1 meter should do nicely. Notice the gap that gets created between the parapet and the ground floor. To prevent that, make sure Start Cap is enabled. This way, if the camera is looking up at the building, you won't get any gaps or holes in the geometry. To actually create the parapet, enable and adjust the Level 1, Level 2 bevel values accordingly. You still need a gravel surface, so with the parapet still selected, use Add New Element to add a volume at the same elevation. This one doesn't need a start cap, but it certainly needs an end cap. Choose a dirt or gravel texture for it, and adjust real-world dimensions, height multiplier, and start width values accordingly. Zoom in and take a look at the top of the parapet. The way the concrete texture is wrapping is far from perfect. What's more, in situations like these, you usually cover the top and inside of parapets with metal flashing, which is simply of a solid color. You may not need that level of detail depending on your camera work, but if you do, I'll tackle the situation in a moment. For now, let's keep adding to the building creation. With either the parapet or the gravel surface selected, add a new level. If you have a hard time seeing the footprints, even with X-ray mode enabled, you can use the toggle wireframe button. This time you will select a different footprint from the one used for the ground floor. Select the L-shaped spline and switch back to shaded mode. Disable caps on the new volume and take a good look at it. It seems to be floating above the gravel surface. This is because of how Building Maker treats building elements. It is based on a hierarchy of levels, where the position of every floor element is based on the level below it. In this case, the bottom part of the tower is dependent on the upper part of the parapet. However, you can select an element, like the parapet in this case, and force it to disregard any upper floors. This makes the upper floors look for the next constraint in the hierarchy, which in this case is the gravel surface. Once that's done, all you need to do is define and adjust the tower's parameters. As you did for the ground floor, you now need to define a roof for the tower. However, Building Maker will make that process easier to perform now that you have elements that you can copy. Start by adding a new level using regular procedures. Instead of going through the same process as before to create the parapet, simply use the Copy Building Element Properties button to copy parameters from an existing volume. That's a real time saver. Add a new element for the gravel surface, and again, use the Copy button to sample the properties of an existing volume. Of course, you may decide to make changes to the copies after the fact, such as reducing the protrusion of the tower roof, for example. You can also change footprints after having created volumes. Case in point, let's say you add a mechanical room on the roof using this circular shape as a base. And then you change your mind and decide on a rectangular room instead. Then you can simply use the Replace button to do just that. In the next movie, you take a look at some of the finer points of Building Maker functionality.